Morning, Patriots. Today is the day. It is officially January 20th, 2021, Inauguration Day. Today will be interesting. Will we see what Q thinks we will see, or will we just see Biden being inaugurated? I'm not entirely sure. Some things kind of look like they may shape up to be, Trump kind of holding his cards close and waiting a couple months before he makes his big final checkmate against Biden. Not sure. But there are just a couple things that I wanted to mention before we get into, the festivities leading up into the rest of the day. Just a few history things I wanted to point out. Back in the 1930s under FDR, Inauguration Day was actually moved. George Washington was inaugurated on April 30th, and the presidencies after that, Inauguration Day was March 4th or 5th, depending on if it was a Sunday. And that was, March 4th was inauguration date all the way up until around 1933 under FDR, when he ratified the 20th Amendment and moved up inauguration to January 20th. And the reason why inauguration was originally so far after the election in March was because, we didn't have cars and planes back then. A lot of the ballots had to be transferred by horse and buggy. So it took a very long time for votes to be tallied up. And so March was around the time when they had everything tallied up. And then when more technology became available and when FDR wanted to get in office faster, he just said, you know what, we're going to do the 20th Amendment. Inauguration is now January 20th, and that's it. So, there is that amendment, which makes a constitutionality thing kind of interesting because, some people have said that Trump has up until March, the original inauguration day. But when you look at having the amendment, because that is part of the, Constitution and all of that, that kind of makes things interesting. But what really grabbed my attention this morning was I was scrolling through my social media, and somebody was talking about the Act of 1871. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with that. I myself was not. I had never heard of it. But basically what the Act of 1871 was that the United States is actually not a country. It's a corporation. And D.C. is technically foreign soil because a lot of foreign entities basically put their hands in the cookie jar, and they don't necessarily own it, but there's a lot of foreign interest interested in it. And when you look at it from a corporation standpoint, a lot of things in regards to deep state and cabal make a lot of sense, because if you are a corporation and not a country, and if you are like us and like DC, because DC, according to the Act of 1871, has a totally separate constitution compared to the United States as a whole. So when you combine that with the cabal and deep state, to me at least, everything makes so much more sense, and why it has been so hard for people to take down the deep state. And that's because we're a corporation. And when you play by a different rule book, it's a lot harder for other people to bring down, such people. And I think that's, just looking into all of that and taking all of that into consideration, it all makes so much more sense to me. And, I haven't done a lot of reading up on the Act of 1871. I do plan on doing more of that. But just in my brief glancing, it really does make so much more sense from a corporation standpoint, and that would explain so many things in regards to, treason and, the crimes that people like Pelosi and Schumer and McConnell, Chief Justice Roberts have committed, and why they aren't being held accountable. And I know part of that has to do with nobody, wants to deal with that. Nobody wants to step up, be the bigger man, and say, hey, look, you're not upholding the laws that we're meant to follow, we have to hold you accountable. So, there is that, but it really does make so much more sense when you think about it as them playing by a different rule book, because if by the Act of 1871, they literally have an entirely different rule book than we the people do. So, I encourage everyone to read up on the Act of 1871, look into your history on the 20th Amendment. I thought that was very interesting. I never even knew that there was actually a different inauguration date. Way back then, I thought that, January 20th was kind of what it always was, but it wasn't. So that was an interesting thing I learned about history. So I encourage everyone to read up on it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts on the Act of 1871? What are your thoughts in regards to Trump and the Q movement? I don't know what will happen today. I don't know if Trump will take office. I don't know if he'll do anything. So it will be interesting. And it also, for all of you conspiracy Q people, with Trump leaving the White House today, there was 17 flags in front of his plane. And for those of you who don't know, the 17th letter of the alphabet is Q. Now, is that symbolic? Are the 17 flags meant to represent that? Are they just flags and the number didn't matter? I don't know. But there's your little conspiracy theory for you to ruminate on for today. We shall see what happens. Trump may not ever hold office again. I still think that he will find a way to at least take Biden and most of the deep state down. I hope to see Trump back in office, but, we just got to see what happens. Keep each other updated, stay positive, and hold the line. This is your host, President-elect Arwal, and this is Freedom Speaks.